Okay. Oh,
Been on the phone all day, so voice getting a little dry.
no problem. I'd like to welcome Leo Hopf. He's the author of Rethink, Redirect, Reposition, the 12 Strategies to Renew Your Business and Boost Your Bottom Line. In July of 2010, it was Book of the Month by Institute for Management Studies. He holds a Master's of Business Administration from Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth. He also holds bachelor's degrees in both chemistry and metallurgic engineering from the University of Minnesota. And he's contributed to businesses in 15 different countries across 40 different industries, designed planning processes for 5 of the Fortune 500 companies, and is currently the CEO of Team Hopf, working with executive teams to bring clarity and alignment to most of the pressing strategic issues. And your wife, you and your wife are both major contributors to the volleyball, co-authoring the book with Beth Lanier, the 4-time coach of the year by the AVCA and Pac-12 coach of the year for in 2019. You and your wife have contributed to volleyball. And I got a quote from Harriet that I thought was just perfect. It says, participating in college, both as a varsity athlete and on intramural teams, gave me the confidence and discipline to succeed in medical school, in my career, and in my life. And I always say volleyball is not just a sport, it's a lifestyle. So that complements my theory completely. I'm honored to welcome Leo to the Volleyball and Sunsets. My name's Pam Brandt, and let's begin this interview. I'm so excited to meet you. You have truly inspired me through the last year. I started this business back in September. I started doing research on becoming a travel writer and how I could help influence the awareness of players and coaches and organizations. And then COVID hit. And all of my trips that I had planned were to locations where tournaments were canceled. So I was very limited in regards to the connections, but like everyone else in this pandemic, we've learned to adjust and adapt to the online environment.
Yep.
So one of my questions for you that I could not find any information on, have you ever played volleyball or basketball or coached or?
Well, interestingly, you mentioned my wife, Harriet. Harriet and I met playing volleyball. We had at Dartmouth, where we both went to school. She was in the medical school, I was a business school. We had a medical school against a business school volleyball match, and Harriet and I were rotating across the front line together, and she smashed the ball into my face, a very hard kill, and asked her out after that, and we got married very soon after. So that is actually my claim to fame as an athlete in volleyball, is that I met my wife there. I was just a recreational player. I played recreational in college, never even close to the category of athletes that you see out on either the beach or on the court, but you don't have to be to love the game.
Exactly. That's my whole philosophy, is that I think volleyball has gotten, you ask anyone in regards to different athletes in different sports, they can name you football players and coaches, basketball players and coaches. Ask them who plays volleyball and who are the leading people in volleyball, and there's really, they don't know.
Yep.
So I want to make it a household name and a household sport that people talk about regularly, just like they talk about basketball and football and baseball. So
a fine goal, Pam. I like that.
I actually received information from another interview I did with Dave Wildman, who is now a coach for beginning athletes and things like that. And when I was asking him who he looked up to and who was his mentors and everything, your name came up.
Yep.
he said you were an inspiration and an innovator on business and coaching and the whole aspect of the game. How do you feel you contribute to the sport?
Well, first, I started as a fan. This is how I got together with Beth Lanier, the head coach, 31-year head coach at the University of Utah. Originally, I was just a rabid fan. And Beth and I would start talking, and she'd start saying, here are some of the issues I'm dealing with in my volleyball program. Is there anything, Leo, that you have from the world of business that would be useful? And we started to sort of pick and choose. And it turns out that there are a lot of things that volleyball does better than any business. Things like passion, individual development, team development. Volleyball will kick butt on any business on that. Businesses will try and do it. They're just not as good as volleyball is. But there are some things that businesses maybe got a little edge on volleyball. Things like, in a volleyball program, even a large one like Utah and the Pac-12, maybe there are 30 people in some way involved, from strength coaches to mental health to assistant coaches. So about 30 is maybe about as large as you're going to get. Whereas in the business side, you'll have 30,000. And so businesses are pretty good at organizing stuff and getting stuff done, but it's all focused on the work and getting the work done. It's really not focused on individual development, on team development. In fact, in business, when you get on a team, it'll only last about 3 months. And so if you don't like the other people on the team, you just hold your breath and then you're done and you go on to the next thing. Well, if you're in a 4-year volleyball program, 5 years with a red shirt, you don't have the luxury of saying, well, I don't like these 3 players, and so I'm not going to talk to them. Well,
Right.
one of them's your setter, and I don't care how good of a hitter you are, unless you get the right set, you're not going to be useful. So you have no choice but to develop as a team in a way that you can sort of avoid in a lot of other places. And that's one of the things I really love about volleyball and really coaching as a whole. Is I'm not a coach, I've never been a coach, which is sort of interesting. In fact, the real power of this, writing with such a coach is really 31 years, the reigning Pac-12 Coach of the Year, Beth Lanier, is at the top of her game. And
Yeah.
we came at it knowing different things and seeing the world differently. And rather than try and say, well, how can we see the world the same? We took advantage of the diversity in our backgrounds, because there are things that she knows that I have no clue on. And there are things I know that she doesn't. And so we tried to find that intersection and combine sort of the best of both worlds. What does sports do the best? Let's put that in. What does business do the best? Let's put that in. In fact, one of the things that on the last page of the book, Stop Competing and Start Winning: The Business of Coaching, our new book that just came out 2 weeks ago. On the last page, we tried to give an example of this. And I said, here's a volleyball problem I would have no clue of solving. So I write down a volleyball problem. Beth looks at it, laughs, scribbles it out. And it turns out, not only didn't I not know enough to solve a volleyball problem, I didn't know enough to specify a problem, which I couldn't solve. And so it shows how different the worlds are, and yet they can meet in a quite happy place. And I think that's what they've done in the Stop Competing and Start Winning book.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why I am a big fan of both of the books. Your original book, the Rethink, Redirect, Reposition, the 12
Yep.
Strategies book, because it really does break down the business aspect of how to run an organization or a company. And, being diversified over 40 different industries, it's
Yep.
definitely versatile in utilizing it for the volleyball community.
And there
But
were,
then,
Pam, there were a bunch of things that don't fit. So one of the things we had to
right,
learn early on is it's not like, okay, you can just take everything that works in one area and put it in another. So a lot of the real interesting stuff is, what can you reject and why? Turns
yes.
out there's a lot of similarities left, but there are a lot of things that are different enough that not everything that works in one world will work in the other.
And that, what that brings me to another point, that I wanted to just see how you feel about this. One of the things that I think our country has really truly done a disservice for our children is to take away the winners and losers and just everybody's a participant type of mentality. Because I really think that structure leads people to either A, when you lose, you have to learn how to lose. you learn, hey, you know what? I don't like that feeling.
Yep.
I'm going to improve. I'm going to try harder. I'm going to figure out and learn and seek the knowledge that I don't have to become a better player.
Yep.
Or, you know what? I'm going to try something different because this just isn't for me. And giving that winning and losing philosophy and taking that away from the kids, I think really just created a disservice for our kids to grow
Yep.
in
Well,
that
it
aspect.
sort of defined losing or making a mistake as being bad. And that's just a
Right.
natural part. If you're good, if you, let's say you're a good player and you never want to lose, what you'll do is you'll only play weak teams and weak opponents, and you'll win most of the time, but you're not going to reach your potential, because to reach your potential, you have to be pushed to failure at some points. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. You can't get if you have the potential to be a great player, you can get there, but you're going to fail along the way. Pick yourself up and keep going. If you try never to fail, you're going to take a great player, turn him into a good player. Take a good player, turn him into an okay player, okay into a marginal, because you define success as not making a mistake, not messing up, not losing, as opposed to achieving the potential that you have as an individual, as an athlete, as a business person, as a medical person, as an academic, whatever field you're in. You have to push, 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 push. Otherwise, what you're going to have is a nice, comfortable life, which is okay. But if you really want to win, learning to lose is a natural part of that. Not loving to lose, but recognizing that if you're not losing, you're not trying hard enough. You're not playing against good enough competition.
Yes. I agree wholeheartedly. And I hope that changes back soon.
Well,
Um,
one thing I might say, Pam, that the idea that the title of the book, "Stop Competing and Start Winning," really focuses on this idea that many programs, even Division I, high level volleyball programs, are really just designed to compete. Everyone goes in, they do their best every day, everyone's working hard, but they don't have all the pieces in place. And so success, if it comes, is going to up one year because you have great athletes, down the next. If you want consistent success, you have to be designed to win, which is, what does that mean in terms of your philosophy of building the program, the people you bring in, your attitude toward your stars and toward your C players. When we do this, talk about the book with coaches, we get such all the early questions are on what we call C players, the 1 in 10, 1 in 20, sort of the low end players that not only do they do their, and as players, by the way, may be staff members. So it's not just athletes, it could be staff members. And people underestimate the true cost of letting low performers hang around a program that's trying to win. And in the book, we go through several things like, of course, they do their own job badly, but they take up a spot that could have been used to develop somebody else. Uh, Other people depend on their work, and because they're slow and late in getting it, even your stars are held back. And the key is, if you're a head coach or if you're the owner of a club and you allow someone who's obviously a C performer on your staff, what that says is that's perfectly acceptable to have that level of performance. That to you is acceptable. Everyone else sees that, and either they say, well, this person's clueless, they don't know what's going on, or they do know what's going on and it's fine by them. So geez, I guess I'm not going to work as hard as I was, because evidently my boss doesn't need that.
right. Yeah, it does create a lackadaisical type of mentality.
Yep. I like
And
that. I like that term. Lackadaisical is exactly what it does.
yeah, and then, it doesn't, it takes away that drive that is innate in most people to become better, to work hard, and to have that work ethic in place for themselves because they've never been pushed to have one.
Now, Pam, there is one little caveat I want to make, because the book is written for assuming that you want to have an elite program and are really focusing on high levels. So whether it's Utah focusing on trying to win a national championship or someone else, there are different types of sports programs. Think about a high school program. You know, in
Right.
that program, you're going to have people, and maybe the students need the sport more than the sport needs them. And so
I,
you're maybe not maybe your focus isn't on winning. I mean, the book is about, if you want to have an elite program, how do you do it? How do you design it to win? But recognizing that there are other programs that maybe it's more of a, as you mentioned, volleyball, many things in volleyball are just participation, and not, you're not trying to get a scholarship. You just love the game, you love the workouts, you love the social aspect of it. And, you know, for things like that, you know, I'd be a lot more lenient on accepting low-level performers, because, hey, we're in this to have fun. You know, you can have fun at a high-level program, but you also have to win. And that's what the really focusing on the book's about. So I just want to mention that sometimes,
yeah.
you know, that the idea is not just how it is designed to win, because you're giving people an opportunity to grow and mature as people and as athletes early on, and that has a value in and of itself.
And I think winning needs to be defined too as the success. It's not, the success comes from self-esteem.
Yep.
What are your players feeling? Are they
Yep.
are they happy to be here? Do they look forward to coming at, to practice? Are they are they just putting a face on to be here? And to me, that's winning. If you can get a group of people that really want, are sure to be there on time, they're sure to come and play, they're going to give it their all.
Yep.
Even if they don't want to give it their all, they're okay with not giving it their all, but they're there to support everybody else that is.
Yep.
That mentality, to me, that's winning.
Yep.
And that's what I love about volleyball, because there are so many different levels of playing, from the
Yep.
recreational and intramural to the bar leagues to the clubs to, the elite programs and the college programs and the professional
Yep.
programs. The sky's the limit. You can go and just have fun with the buddies, in the neighborhood, or you can go to the Olympics or go professional, and
Yep.
it's really awesome that volleyball holds that opportunity for so many.
Yeah, it's got to be almost more than any other sport in terms of, you can play it for a long time. It takes a long time before you age out of being able to play recreational volleyball. And there's no matter if you're a D player, C player, B player, A player, almost any city you can find a match on almost any weekend. So
Exactly. And knowing where to go is a big thing, and then being able to participate in it. That's a problem I have too. Sometimes, people will go, oh, well, you can't be in this because you're not part of this organization or that
yep.
organization. And so that really limits and hinders the sport. The last 3 years, speaking of Beth and your book, Stop Competing, Start Winning, you and Beth Lanier, the coach from Utah University College, she has, you guys have been touring and doing
Yep.
speaking venues and integrating your philosophies and things like that and sharing that. How has that been for you?
Well, it's really quite interesting because we've been giving talks at the AVCA, the American Volleyball Coaches Association, for really the last 5 years, I guess. And so I'm up talking with, Beth obviously is sort of a rock star, and all, coaches coming up
Yeah.
left, right, and center. But
Yeah.
I'm not a coach, and so I'm talking the first time I'm up there, and I've got 350 Division 1, 2, and 3 coaches in the audience, and I'm trying to give them ideas. Well, who am I to give ideas? It's not like I can out X and O them. And so for a while, it took me a time to get comfortable, talking to coaches, telling them about coaching, even though I'm not that, because I have some things from outside the world of coaching which are actually applicable and helpful. But it was actually kind of cool because over the last year, as we've been writing the book, we've done a lot of talks where Beth now is talking to some of my business groups, my business clients. We've talked to medical people, we've talked to academics, and all of a sudden Beth gets to be the one, the fish out of water, talking to other folks. But rather than saying, well, we're business folks, what can we learn from this coach? They're just eating it up because they say, man, it's such a different way of thinking about it. And I never would have thought that, vision is, in business, everyone has like a vision statement, but they do it in an hour, they put it up on the wall, doesn't do
Right.
anything, they forget about it.
Yeah.
Beth spends, 20 hours with her team just being clear on exactly what do we want as our vision, has a program, as individuals, has positions, has years in the program, and a lot more depth and a lot more usefulness of it. And the players get involved. They're the ones helping build the vision. So they feel much more empowered to then go ahead and execute and actually achieve the vision. So it really is interesting how differently people see things and how open they are to good ideas from beyond their current boundaries. If you're a
Yes.
coach, you learn from other coaches. And so if you've been in the game for a while, pretty much 80%, 90% of all you can learn from other coaches. But if you go out to different people, what you find is they know different stuff. And that's what Beth and I realized there's a real advantage to that. And by working together collaboratively as a team, we've been able to originally I was thinking, we'll take some business ideas, stuff them into volleyball. But it turned out much, much bigger than that. What I realized was, boy, my business stuff, which I've been doing for 33 years, I've actually got more experience than Beth does, that gets elevated now by the stuff I've been able to put in there from sports and the world of volleyball. So I learned way more than I thought early on. I was sort of being a consultant to Beth, and I didn't realize how much I was picking up from the things I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know, and that's where we started.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I say that all the time. You don't know what you don't know until you start looking for the knowledge.
Yep. Yep.
Well, you answered my question on what was your biggest takeaway, and I think that's it. Is the information exchange through the cross-secting of the two different, from volleyball and business. I think that's great. What's been your most inspiring moment?
Well, actually, I think I have a reasonable answer for this. It was the only sort of pep talk I've ever given to a sports team. And it sort of went back to early on, about 10 minutes ago, you talked about, you see it in the faces of volleyball players, the joy and the excitement.
Yes.
Well, this is about 3 years into the Pac-12. Beth, the first 3 years were pretty tough for Utah. They're playing Stanford, Washington, UCLA, USC. I mean, every weekend you're playing two top 20 teams. It's pretty tough. And they had been losing about 3 matches for every one they won. They were 9th place out of 12 in the Pac-12. And looking out on the court, the players just stopped smiling. You could tell they were sort of grinding it out.
Yes.
And I actually sit closer to the court than Beth does. My wife and I have the first 9, we're on 9 seats on the court. We always bring our buddies. So from the net on out, so we're actually closer to the players than Beth is as a coach. And the team had all the talent. They should have been winning more than they were. They were at the point now where they really were starting to get good and ready to win. But they didn't yet believe that. And so Beth asked me to come in and give a talk to her team in the locker room. I said, Beth, I've never done that before. And she says, and I said, well, what do you want me to say? And she goes, Leo, I trust you with my team. And when she said that, I trust you with my team, I spent maybe 5 times as much in that 1 hour talk, a 1 hour talk to the team than I spent on any other keynote speech to 500 business executives. And what I really came down to, I eventually came up with something I was pretty pleased with, which was the idea of, when Utah entered the Pac-12, they were like little field mice. They were scurrying around and hiding behind boulders so that they didn't get eaten by all these predators in the Pac-12. Well, now the system, the team, the athletes had progressed to the point where really they were the predators. They were ready to be the predators. They just had to make that click, that switch in their mind that we're the red-tailed hawks floating about looking for the field mice. And so that idea of switching, in fact, one of the players during the talk said, I never realized we could just decide we're the ones who are going to win.
Right.
And I said, well, how do you enter the elite group like Stanford, Florida, Nebraska, Penn State, who go into every match assuming they're going to win? How do you get invited to that group? And the players sort of sat there, and I said, that's right, you won't be. The only way you enter it is by deciding in your own mind that you belong and that you are now the ones who the others should fear, rather than the ones who fear the big folks. And so I think that was my, it was lasted about 45 minutes in the locker room. I haven't, that was my one talk, but it felt pretty good. And after that, Beth got a little plush toy that had its own seat on the Utah bench, a red-tailed hawk, and that had its seat on the bench. So and then they went on a 5-match winning streak. So.
Oh, that's awesome. But I wish I would have had this interview before I had one the other with Terry Liskovich, because I was interviewing him, and I was like, I told him, I said, I feel like a 12-year-old who just went to see the Rolling Stones and got invited backstage, and I'm standing in front of Mick Jagger.
Well, that was, another fun thing about writing the book with Beth. We're writing the book. We got all outlined and all the ideas we want in, and then we said, well, gee, maybe we should interview some folks and get some good quotes and some good ideas. And Beth said, well, yeah, I guess you could call my buddies. Well, who are your buddies? Well, Karch Karai and John Dunning of Stanford. And so in the book now, Tara Vanderveer, now the winningest women's basketball coach in Division I. So in the book, we have a dozen interviews. We spent 2 hours on the phone with Karch and with all these other Hall of Fame level coaches. And then I also, on my end, I got 4 business CEOs that we spent a couple hours on to get all their ideas in as well. So, that was just maybe a little surprise. I hadn't even expected that in the book, but how interesting it was to basically be able to talk to these legends and find out, how they got to the ridiculous heights that they got to.
Yes. That's been I'm so honored and blessed that I've had that mentality of, you know what, I'm not the field mouse anymore. It's time to become the hawk and go big or go home.
Yep. It's amazing what that does in terms of just mentally flicking the switch and say, yes, I'm going to win, as opposed to, geez, I hope I'm going to win. And it was just getting rid of that I'm hope and just say, yeah, I'm going to win. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. But if you go in assuming you're going to win, all of a sudden the smiles came back. All of a sudden the energy came back. All of a sudden the joy came back.
Yes.
In a way it hadn't been there when they felt like, we're just hoping to win, and early on in the Pac-12, they were hoping to survive some of the matches. It was pretty tough.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Just like, that's another thing about volleyball is the whole mental aspect of it. Yep. When you can overcome the mental aspect of making a bad play and then stepping up and dropping that thought and making the next play count.
Yep.
What an amazing adrenaline rush that is.
Yep.
It really elevates. it just elevates you on so many levels, chemically as well as spiritually. What do you see needs to happen in the volleyball industry to elevate the awareness of players, coaches, training programs in the U.S.?
Well, that's sort of a broad question. I'll give you maybe a smaller answer to a broad question. I think
sounds good.
The key has what, if you were to ask Beth this, and we have many times, she has a very clear answer to this. She says, Leo, the thing I got from you more than anything else was the golden rule. And that's really what turned my program around. So, well, the golden rule is anything which can be delegated must be delegated. So don't take 50 tasks and try and decide one at a time, should I delegate it or not? That takes too much time. Instead, you have to come up with a reason for why you should withhold that task and do it yourself. Because there's some tasks that only the head coach can do. And if the head coach is doing the task that could have been done by assistant coaches or could have been done by parent volunteers in the club, who's doing the things that only a head coach can do? And right. So that idea, it sounds very simple. Anything that can be delegated must be delegated, but the implications are enormous. And in fact, that was sort of Beth said that was what started me down this path of working together. And she thought she understood it, and then she worked on it for a couple months and came back, and we talked about it again. And she worked on it for a couple months, came back, talked about it again, and we keep on talking about it. And what she had done when she entered the Pac-12, all of a sudden, there was so much pressure, so many staff members. She was spending less and less time with her team and more time being a manager. And she didn't
Yeah.
enter this to be a manager. She wanted to be a coach. And so basically she said, Leo, how can I get the management out of the way so I can spend time with my players and get back to the coaching I love? And that's really where the golden rule comes in. She's now able to get rid of the stuff that other people can do. Can they do it as well as she can? Maybe not, but for 85% of the time, that's good enough. And now she's able to focus on the things that only she can do and that she loves to do. And I think that's key. Most of us, we always say, it's better and I can do it better and faster myself. And if you take that attitude, that is the single worst attitude you can take, because you'll start doing very low level tasks because it's easier to do yourself. Well, it may take 3 times as long to teach one of your assistants how to do that, but that task is going to come up 20 times. And so if you spend 3 times to teach them, and then they do it 20 times on their own, that's a heck of a payback. And that's really the value. It's not that you're trying to dump work off on the other folks. You're trying to get the right work done by the right people at the right level.
Very well said. One of the things that I know we've touched on in previous conversation was about the different levels, and that your books are more geared towards the high quality, the higher impact elite athlete. But I still, there's so much in there that I think even the volunteer parents that go to coach can learn a lot by knowing what do you take ownership of, what do you delegate, who's responsible for what are the players responsible for, what are the parents responsible for, and what is the coach responsible for. And I think having that outline and understanding really does help the cohesion of everything and making everything flow. So,
and there's another point, Pam, which are some people have no one to delegate to. If some places are very small, and so if that's the case, maybe your answer is don't do something rather than delegate. If there's no one to delegate to, maybe you're better off not doing it. So focus on the small number of things that matter.
Yes. Well, I appreciate it. I'm so excited and so honored and glad to meet you. I can't wait for my books to get here because I've ordered them.
Excellent.
And I might end up doing the same thing.
And just by the way, 2 days ago, the audiobook came out. So now it's on audiobook, hardbound, Kindle, and paperback on Amazon. And so the audiobook we were waiting on has finally been approved, and it's online. And so if you like listening in the car, now you can do it.
And I think there's so many different great things out there. There's so many different great coaching, informational, structural workshops, so to speak. And there's so many things for players now. There's so many different types of training programs. A lot of clubs are coming up with their own. A lot of them are implementing other tools from the internet and the online programs that they're offering, which has been an adaptation of the times. But I think one of the biggest problems that I feel in regards to the volleyball industry is that there's no cohesion to all of the different programs. There's no local central location for them to go to look for stuff. You really kind of have to be a good inspector, investigator to find what you're looking for, and to get an understanding of, is this the program I want? Is this program geared towards the beginning of coaching and new kids? Is this more of the high school level? Is this more for your elite athletes? And knowing which range and levels they are. And so that's what I'm combining all together on my travels and investigative research. And I thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful for your participation. I can't wait to share your books with as many people as I can and have them read the inspirational information from Beth, as well as from yourself in regards to the business aspect of things.
Yep.
I think this is going to be one of my premier go-to guides, so to speak.
I really
And
appreciate that, Pam. Thank you for having me. This has been a delight.
yes, thank you so much. And hopefully after I get it, I'll probably be calling you back because I'm probably going to have so many other things to ask you about and talk to you about.
Love to talk to you again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Take care.
Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye.